Okay, so today with this lesson we are going to use color to fill in our mandala that we created using our pen tool. With this we are going to show some different ways of filling in color. So far we've used just kind of the general fill button with our robot in our first shape building tool lesson. With this, the first thing we're going to do is in my layers, I want to make sure all my layers are unlocked so that I can easily access them and switch them and add and take away the colors that I want to use. So with those unlocked, I'm free to kind of choose anything on my board here without having to worry about unlocking and relocking layers. So the first thing I want to do before I start adding color to this is I want to make sure my color mode is correct. So if I go to File and go to Document Color Mode, which is down here, you'll notice you have two choices, CMYK color and RGB color. So RGB would be red, green, blue, and all your colors would be based off a combination of red, green, and blue in different percentages. CMYK would be based on cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which are common printing colors. So we will want to use in most of our documents in CMYK color, and that's usually preset, but it never hurts to double check it to make sure that's what you're working with. So when you do that, just kind of a review on fill. When you select a shape, before we would go up here into our drop down menu that would have different swatches, or we would come over here to our swatches panel and open our swatches on the right hand side, and we could choose any color and it would fill. Okay, or we could choose our stroke and it would change the color of the stroke. With that, those are pretty basic in how they work because you're just choosing solid colors. You'll notice as you roll over each color there is a CMYK number. What that is those are the numbers in there are the percentages of that specific color when mixed with the other ones. So if you're looking up color by CMYK, which you can absolutely do, you can do it that way, or you can choose colors and kind of build colors as you wish. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take a color that's on here and we are going to make a custom color with it. So I'm going to choose that circle again, and with this I'm going to choose a green, or I'm going to choose a blue, and I'm going to fill that. It's not the exact blue that I want. I would like a different type of blue, and there's two ways in which I can adjust that. The first is to go up here to my colors, and you'll notice that there is an eyedropper tool. So if this is kind of the blue that I have, but I want something a little different, if I extend this down, it's going to give me some more options. And wherever I put that eyedropper tool and I click on it, it's going to change that color within that circle. The other thing I can do is once I have that color is these two little arrows next to the word color. If I click on that, it's going to give me my CMYK bars. And what that's going to allow me to do is adjust my color percentages. If you have a color that you know the CMYK for, you can type those in and it'll change that. So if I just change this to 87 and then 35, we'll go 0 and 0. Okay, that'll change my color in this box. So there are multiple different ways to change that color as well. The other thing you can do is in your swatches, if you double click on it, it opens up the color picker window. And what this does is these bars will slide up and down. This bar over here, it'll always show you your original color here, and as you slide these, you'll notice that that original color changes, or that the top part is the new color. It's kind of your preview. Over here, this circle, you can kind of drag it around here to kind of get the color that you want more specifically. Upper right hand corner is going to be a richer, brighter value. As you go further down, it's going to be a darker value. To the left, it's going to lighten to the gray scale a little bit and become a little bit more pastel in its use. Okay, so for this, let's choose more of, change up our color a little bit. Okay, and then we can hit OK. If we want to keep this color swatch to use in other places, we can create a new color swatch in our color swatch panel. You're not limited to this and then adjusting each one. So I want to, because we'll want to do multiple parts in this color, what I'm going to do is over here in my swatches panel, I'm going to have that color selected. And then at the bottom, I'm going to create a new swatch. So I'm going to click on the new swatch, and I can title this Mandala Blue. I want to make sure my global is not checked, and I want to make sure add to my library is deselected. Those are things that we will work on later on that we definitely do not need to use right now. It would just add more confusion to this process. So I'm going to save Mandala Blue, make sure global is deselected, make sure add to my library is deselected, and then I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice it adds that blue swatch to the end of my list of swatches up here. So that is in there and it's set as part of that group. Okay, so then I can go and I can select different things and I can fill them. I can select multiple things holding down my shift key while I go around and select, and then I can fill using that. I may want to create, with this I will probably want to create a series of colors or a group of colors, which I can do. So I'm going to use, because this is kind of one of my base colors that I want to use. With my color selected, I'm going to then go down to, next to the new swatch button is that little file folder. If I click on that, it says new color group. So I'm just going to choose that and choose and just type in Mandala and then hit OK. And you'll notice it takes that swatch and moves it down into its own file here. If there are other colors that I want to add to this, I can certainly grab them from here and drag them down. So if I, for instance, if I would like to use this yellow swatch, I can then grab it and I can drag it down, and that blue bar that appears next to my color, that'll be where that color ends up being placed. It doesn't copy it, it actually moves it off the top swatches to down here, but now you have swatches, any swatches that you want to use would be located in this spot. Okay, so then I can go in and I can choose areas that I would want to use this swatch in. And I can fill, oops, missed one, and I can fill with that if I want to. Okay. If I want to change this swatch, again, I will double click on it and that'll open this, and maybe I want it to be a little bit more orange. And if I do that and I will click OK, that'll change my swatch, but it won't change my colors on here. Okay, so I'll still need to go in and change those colors to that orange instead of that yellow. Click on the orange and it changes it to that orange. Okay, so that's creating your own color group. If you're struggling to figure out what colors you want to use, if you have a starting color, so for instance, if I wanted to use this blue or this orange, if I select that color and then I come up here to color guide and I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to take that swatch that I have selected, and if I click on this drop, it's going to give me my tints and shades. If I click on this drop down menu, it's going to give me a series of color groups based on that color. So these would be other colors that are contrasting colors, or monochromatic color schemes, which is all one color, just different tints and shades and values. Analogous colors, which are colors that are appeared next to each other on the color wheel. Complementary colors, which are colors that are across each other on the color wheel. And then different types of complementary colors that include different values. What this does is it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of finding color schemes that go together and work together. The other thing you can do so if I would want to do a monochromatic color scheme on mine, I can choose that. And to make sure that I have all these colors available to me, I can go down here at the bottom of this, and it says Save Color Group to Swatch Panel. If I click on that and I go back to my swatches, you'll notice that color group appears down here. And that's the one I selected, so it's easily available when I want to come in and switch my colors and start filling. Okay. Also, up in here, if you're kind of not sure where to start, even in the bottom left hand corner of this is it gives you a swatch library. And what this does is it gives you different themes. So for instance, art history, if I wanted a pop art, which is more of a modern art that is usually bright colors and things like that, if I wanted a color palette like that, I'd choose that pop art. It's still based off of that initial color I chose, and it changes my tints and shades. It also kind of changes my color families that appear in here. Okay, a lot of it's going to be pretty similar. I can also go in here and choose an impressionism one, and it's going to change my tints and shades as well. And you'll notice it changes the types of colors that it gives me. They're not quite as bright and loud as they were in the pop art one, but this kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it for you if you're not sure what direction to go with color. This is gonna help you out a little bit and give you some options. So excuse me. So with that selected, then there may be some areas where you've built a shape similar to these fan type shapes that I built, and you may want to fill these sections with different colors. Okay, when we go to do that, I'm going to select a starting color, and I'm going to create a new color group for this. I'm going to go from here. I'm going to shift to this color, and I've selected those, and now I'm going to create a new color group. I'm just going to call it fan colors, and it's going to create this color group down here and separate it from everything else. So I'm going to select one of those colors. We'll start with this one, and over on the left hand toolbar under my shape builder tool, if I click on that and hold it down, you'll see Live Paint Bucket. Live Paint Bucket is going to allow me to paint individual colors within these shapes in here. If you have, as you go to do this, if you're struggling and it's filling the whole thing, just let me know. There's a button you need to press to kind of merge these and separate them so that the computer knows what it's looking for. So above my icon for my paint bucket, you'll notice that there's three colors. One has a big square around it. That's the color that I selected initially. And then those other two colors are the colors that appear next to it or right on the other side of it. I can switch between those colors just by moving my arrow right and left. And you'll notice the box inside my color swatch changes as well. And that's so that I'm not constantly having to go back over to my swatches and select. This way I can easily fill color quickly. So for example, I want that dark blue in there, and then I come back and I just make these lighter as they come up. and then I can create that color scheme throughout there. For this though, you will need to go through each one. It doesn't fill as easily as some of the other ones do, so it's a little bit more tedious, but then you can go through and you can create those colors within there to fill those and have those separate sections filled with color. The other thing it does is if I find that one of these sections is a little off, if I zoom in and I select and I go in here and I need to select this line because it's off, I go into isolation mode and I need to change its path. You'll notice that that color fill changes with it. Okay, so we're just going to undo that. That color fill will change with it, and it'll create some. It'll move as you move the lines. Okay, if you need to make adjustments. With that, those are kind of your basic color options. The biggest thing is being able to separate your colors and create swatches and color families so that really you're working with one set of colors when it comes to filling this, and you're not having to create new colors every single time. As you fill in this and you add your color to it and you figure out your color schemes, you're going to save it and submit it. But our next lesson, we're going to deal with some gradients and how we can get some of these colors to change just within the space that they exist. But first I want you to get comfortable with creating new colors and finding color groups and manipulating color to work in your favor. So once you are comfortable with it, start filling your mandala with colors that you select. You definitely do not need to use the ones that I use. This is perfect. This is just for an example. And then make sure you save that and submit it. And then our next lesson we'll get into creating gradients and some different effects with the colors that we applied to our mandala.